welcome to SCANtalk by GS1 Ireland, the stories, the people and the standards transforming our daily lives. Today on the show, I'm joined by Cathal O'Reilly of Narcissips. So welcome to the show, Cathal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for being here, Cathal. You were involved in an event that was sponsored by GS1 Ireland, which was the Planet with Purpose event in association with Enterprise Nation and AIB. And you were on the panel talking about your business, Narcissips, and the sustainable practices that you've embedded into that business. Would you like to tell us a little bit about Narcissips and what you're doing with the brand?
Yeah, so first of all, it was a great event to be a part of. Like, it was actually nice to be back face to face doing them events as well after hiding behind the camera.
Yeah, there's been so few, hasn't there?
Yeah, but yeah, I suppose to try and keep a brief introduction, we're just essentially a reusable bottle business based out of Dublin in Ireland. And rather than hopefully just being just a product-based business, we want to raise as much education and awareness as possible on the benefits of these small changes that I believe can really make a big impact in our lives as well, and especially when all of us are somewhat even still clueless and whatnot. Sometimes all we can focus on is these small little things in our lives. So yeah, 3 years in now at the moment running it. It was predominantly ran as a hobby, and now most recently trying to get it up and running as a full-time job. So we'll see how that goes over the coming months. But I guess it was 2017, 2018, you're kind of becoming a bit more aware of the plastic problem in terms of your health environment. And as a trainee accountant at the time as well, you're probably stereotypical adding your euros together as well. And you're like, well, I'm wasting 300 or 400 euro on plastic as well.
For sure.
But I was growing up with my grandmother predominantly, and and maybe it's just that old school generation thing as well, but always had so much pride in our local area and local village, and all these memories of just her picking up rubbish, and even still to this day, just picking up rubbish, cleaning pictures and whatnot as well. So I always was kind of confused in how some people can have so much pride in their local area, and then others maybe a little bit less to be bringing rubbish around. So I went out to buy a reusable at the time, and they were all 40 or 50 euro in the shops. So I kind of walked out, which led to a couple of months of me giving out to my friends, family and partners, and that being like, oh, we should be able to afford the sustainable and healthy options and whatnot. And I guess then like having a business background, I've 8 years of college, so going great at this stage. I was kind of thinking that, look, well, I wasn't enjoying the day job too much at the time, and studying full time as well with the accountants kind of maybe wasn't for me. Even though you get through at the end of the day, I was kind of thinking, right, well, good business experience for a few months to set up a business. I thought this would only last year, 6 months max. I thought a good environment to get my friends and family choosing reusables that were affordable. And then I got grants and scholarships to get my education. So you kind of wanted to give back that look that I got to other people as well. So I was like, win-win-win.
Brilliant. So it was about kind of solving this problem of being able to buy a reusable option of saving plastic, not buying the, single-use plastic bottles, but then having it as an affordable option as well, that people can access it. That was kind of the problem that you were solving.
Yeah, well, and I will say since then, like the price has reduced and probably increased for a lot of brands now the past while as well. But again, I think this is something that was mentioned last week on the panel as well. Like me being a small startup, I don't have the legacy issues that other brands would have. So it's easier to keep things more affordable and cheap. And I was happy enough to cycle around Dublin and meet people and hand out the reusables rather than charging 6 or 7 euro for postage as well. So it was just small things like that made sense in my head, and it kept me trim and slim
and more eco-friendly as well, like bike delivery than getting like a delivery service or whatever. So really sustainable. So you said you started in 2018, was it? That the original kind of idea came to you. So obviously you've taken your business through the whole pandemic, which has obviously been, difficult for a lot of businesses. How did that affect Narcissips?
You try and read a lot of positive psychology.
Keep the chin up.
I luckily enough, I didn't mind the pandemic too much because I was working full time. So that saved me 2 hours a day commuting, which I was able to put 2 hours into this, which was something that I enjoyed a bit more, and it was something I was a bit more passionate about. So you kind of have to look for the silver linings. I was living close to the sea. I was trying to build this. I wasn't commuting and spending 2 hours a day on the Lewis, which was kind of nice. And I suppose same as a lot of people, unfortunately not as others, but all my friends and family were kind of safe and sound, and I didn't find it too bad. And then, we were working on a few bits with the vaccines and stuff with PwC at the time as well. So it was an interesting time anyway, to kind of knowing what's going on and trying to go on. But definitely, there was definitely a slowdown in terms of sales and whatnot. But then there's also a bit more benefits in, say, decided having a bit more time to build out the social media. And I think that is the big thing, because everyone can choose reusables, but like, there's no point in having a reusable if you're not going to use it. So it gave you more time to focus on like a community or a network, or just chatting about the small changes you can make, and people who are a bit more engaging during social time. Whereas now it's flipped, whereas everyone's probably off social media and enjoying life again.
Yeah, so it's probably had a positive impact then. You were able to spend more time on the business and grow it and grow the community around the business during the pandemic. And I think there was an awful lot of businesses that came about during the pandemic, because the fact that people had a little bit of time maybe in the evenings to devote to their side hustle or their side business. Obviously, sustainability is embedded in your business, being, by the nature of the product. How important is it for you personally that the business is sustainable, and how do you kind of take those ideas and embed them into the business as a whole?
Yeah, so I suppose again, being lucky enough to be starting off, and it goes back to simple things that we done. Like even in 2014, 2015, we were doing modules in college which were based on, I know it's ESG now, but it was people, planet, profit back then, and sustainable enterprise. For me, it just always went back to the simple things: less driving, watching your food waste, and all that sort of thing. So I just like to keep it simple, and I kind of nearly like to take the approach that if I'm a dummy and I can do it, anyone can. But to embed it all, there was probably three things I looked at. Being a small business, it's predominantly just me and how I go about my day to day. So that was actually saying, right, well, we're not on the scale of other large UK businesses or whatnot. It's just me. So I have to think about things like my food waste or my diet or my personal transport. So that was, again, cycling around Dublin as much as possible. I sold my car over a year ago at this stage, because you can cycle it into Brett and Dublin in 20 minutes rather than getting a headache in traffic. So there's always the environmental benefits, as well as less stressful sitting in the car as well. It is probably somewhat biased in terms of you're looking after yourself as well, but there's the personal aspect of things which you try to cut back on. So I'd walk to the shops every day to buy my food, rather than doing big food shops, which meant less food waste, and also me buying less chocolate for the week. The big thing then is the education piece. That's something I really want to kind of hammer home the next few weeks and months, maybe years. But it's just the more I learn, the more I digest. You can kind of spread that out to other people as well, who might not have the time to learn about it, or realize that, I know there's a doomsday approach out there a lot, but a lot of these changes are simple, actionable, and realistic. And that's what we need to be getting out there a little bit more. And then there's the business and operations side of things then as well, which is, again, for me, our biggest issue is transport at the moment. So when we started, everything was being shipped by air. And that was because you were trying to actually get to customers as fast as possible and build up a lot of trust. But obviously then air has the highest amount of emissions per gram or per kilogram of travel as well out there. So now the past while, that now that we have built up a lot of trust with our customers, we're moving towards train and shipping by air. So that would slow down lead times by about 30 or 40 days. But the good thing is your knock-on effects then are saying, right, we're actually working together here to reduce our emissions as a company and as a relationship. But then B, you're also getting better price reusables as well. So the pricing is something I'm fighting with the past while, because when you're trying to build as a hobby, you're not worried about paying any bills, but now you're trying to pay your bills out of this as well. So you're trying to find that balance by shipping via the slower, more sustainable methods. It's actually more cost friendly, which will hopefully then enable you to motivate more customers to choose you as well. So that's the big thing. And then you have your other small things then as well, which, well, caveat small, but plastic-free shipping and whatnot as well. And then you're using, say, most of when I was walking or cycling to the post office, we have an on-post electric fleet. So you're just trying to control the controllables, I guess, really what you can impact. And I suppose that's one thing I would say to small businesses: don't try and conquer everything, because you can probably get overwhelmed by it and feel overburdened sometimes as well, compared to maybe others who might have more money or that. But then the last thing then, and the thing that goes back to the reasons why we started, is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So again, without grants and scholarships, I'd still be working at Delhi and Super Value, I'd say. So we focus on UN Sustainable Development Goal 4, 6, and 12. 4 is focused on access to education, 6 is access to water, and 12 is responsible consumption and production. So all our partnership initiatives now, we're basically saying, right, well, you're ticking off the box for 12, which is responsible consumption and production, via you choosing to reuse and us trying to do our best as a small business as well in terms of responsible production. Then I think, and again, this might be just my weird perspective on the world. But like, while in Ireland we're like 20 goals, 20, 50 goals, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're lucky that we can plan towards 20 to 50 when there's a lot of others who are a hell of a lot worse off than I am, who can't even get access to education or clean water now. So me getting my grants or scholarship was kind of like, right, so say Avalon, their last order for the partnership, we were able to say to them, right, well, you ticked off responsible consumption 12, you're going to be avoiding 29,000 single-use plastics every month just by reusing every day and hammering that home. But then we partnered with another Irish charity and we got a well constructed in Malawi. I'm not even going to try the villages that it's in, but that's basically saying, right, well, small changes in Ireland can have a big impact across the world, and that's the Sustainable Development Goals kind of hit off. So that's a well that's basically local, clean, reliable for 512 people in that little village. So while the approach is usually in Ireland, we're grand, we can 2030, 2050, we plan to be better. There's still others struggling. So that's kind of why I like the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then there's Sustainable Development Goal 4 as well, which is access to education. And again, that's probably just biased in terms of me trying to give back the look I got. And it's probably a little bit of a tick in the box for me to just say, right, well, I got lucky. Here's a bit of luck given back to others. But there's still a lot out there who can't get access to education. So our model is kind of built around smaller orders or smaller partnerships that they'll go towards the education. And I think we've not a lot, but we've 122 children's tuition fees paid for, and it doesn't cost a lot either. And that's one thing I would say. It sounds incredible or sounds really good, but these things don't actually cost a lot in terms of, say, before say the coffee tax levy there or whatnot, that's 20 cents a coffee for when it's going to be rolled out in the coming months or whatever. Like, after 2 or 3 months, that will add up to the equivalent of you choosing reusable. You're after saving €20. That €20 can give clean water to a family for a month. So there's that big perspective piece there that doesn't cost a lot as well. The big thing then is the education piece. That's something I really want to kind of hammer home the next few weeks and months. So it's not.
Wow, congratulations. God, that's an incredible achievement. And how has the business, sorry if you might have explained this, but I just wanted to be clear, how has the business contributed to that education piece that you mentioned there about the 122 children tuition?
It's all partnerships with 2 charities.
Okay, so you're partnering up with different okay.
So depending on how big the orders will be, they'll either be contributing to wells, or if they want to contribute to wells, the water initiative, that's what we will do. Or smaller orders will now be gone towards education. That's
okay, right.
Past few months officially, but before we kind of got up and running, it would have just been the usual donation per sale.
Okay.
But we're always trying to make things a little bit more professional and try and up the game a little bit, I guess, in terms of now that's less of a hobby and more of hopefully a viable social enterprise, I guess.
Brilliant, amazing. So it's really like this is an incredible achievement and really a tangible contribution in terms of education, clean water, and what was the third one you mentioned?
Responsible consumption and production.
Responsible consumption. Wow, really brilliant. Say if you had somebody coming to you and saying, okay, I want to set up my own business. Think of yourself back in 2018. I want to set up my own business. I want to make it sustainable, or I want to go down the social enterprise route. What advice would you give to somebody coming to you who's just starting out on the journey?
Jesus. Yeah, like at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just always trying to do what you thought was right or felt right or aiming for it. And again, you definitely have a head start now, because the world is turning and everyone wants to be more sustainable and make their operations more emissions friendly. So it's definitely easier to do it now rather than say, and this is what I said to AIB last week. I was like, you're a huge organization. You have supply chains embedded, operations embedded, people embedded. So for them to change their business model and operation, it's a hell of an achievement versus someone like me who can just click a finger and choose DPD who are delivering by electric fleet. So it's probably easier for us now, but you're only realizing that now a little bit too. But I suppose it is just like all I do is just focus on the small things. Like when I was working with PwC and you're trying to do this, you can get overwhelmed, but everything goes back to just trying to tick off one small thing or one small box. So for me, it was right, we're a small business. I'm not profitable at all, but what can I do in terms of my personal impact? So that's the big thing for small operations. You are the main operation, you are the main person. So focus on what you can do on a daily basis, whether that's walking a bit more, shopping daily, watching your food waste, all the little small things that you're told to do, turn off your tap and all that. Then in terms of your business operation, I suppose this is going back to the consultant crack now as well, but like your end-to-end chart. How does that look like from manufacturing or farm to plate or manufacturing to your customer, and map out where your issue points are, and just pick one and start there. So for me, as I said, the big issue for me is transport. So I'm just trying to nail that at the moment, and probably still will be trying to work on that over the next few weeks and months as well. And you probably need to be flexible, because especially now coming up to Christmas, not all clients will be able to go with the 60 or 70 day lead time. So they're going to have to go with the air freight. So it's thinking, right, well, if we do have to go by air freight, how can we offset that? And that'll be done through a tree planting initiative or whatnot as well. Or start small, nail it right. Your UN Sustainable Development Goals will always point you in the right direction there to an extent. For me, like, I am an accountant, so I like looking at the numbers or the data and stuff like that. So when I'm doing all my orders, I'll track everything in terms of weight, in terms of where it's going, and then that will then allow me to be able to say, right, well, last week there was 100 kg of emissions that were produced by the company. What was by air? What was by sea? What was by bike? What was by electric vehicle? And then hopefully down the line, if we can go towards maybe B Corp certified and stuff like that, the fact that we have all the data in place, we know where to kind of start. And that's like your usual college crack. What was it, like a smart, specific, measurable, realistic, timely. And I love the realistic piece there, because we need to be realistic with all these sort of things. So it's just keeping it simple, focusing on one thing at a time. Don't try and overdo it.
Yeah.
There was a report there from Chartered Accountants 2 or 3 years ago that came out, and it was one thing that hit home with me as well, where they were kind of saying, 60% of small businesses and people that were surveyed said like they were too afraid to start because the area of sustainability was so big.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do, or where do I start? And I wrote a newsletter after that, which kind of feeds into everything at Narcissips. Is the area is huge, but you can literally start anywhere then. So it's always that just perspective change, or
exactly.
small,
it's so important, because I think like that feeds into, I think sometimes people get fatigued with sustainability and thinking, okay, the problem is so huge, what can I really do? It's like a drop in the ocean. But actually we need lots of people to be doing the small things, like you said, and just continue to be doing the small things on a daily basis.
It's nearly like a moral and ethical obligation, rather than getting too worried about it.
Yeah.
As I said, I think I said this a while ago there, like, but Ireland's less than 1% of overall global emissions. So even if you were living in a forest and go back to hunting and foraging and gathering, like, it would only be a drop in the ocean compared to the bigger issues and stuff like that. So that's the perspective I take, to not worry. You still have to live your life, and like, in terms of having our phones and our laptops and all this sort of stuff, like, we have a great life at the moment. Let's not kind of forget that and avoid the doomsday approach. And it definitely is probably a hard 2 years, because you had 2 years your head being wrecked with COVID, and now it's gone back to wars and emissions and all that as well. So like, people are only getting back to living their life a little bit normal. Like, I hate hearing people getting anxious about it, when you can kind of
continue to do the small things, make the small changes. So important. And actually interesting that you that statistic, because the feedback that we got from our members when we did a survey recently on our food members, and what we heard back was people saying, that they've made the first few initial changes, and they kind of get to the stage where they don't really know where to go from there. Like, they've maybe, tried to reduce the packaging on their products or something like that, something kind of really tangible and easy to see, and then they're kind of a bit stuck, and they say, I don't really know where to go now. How do I continue on this journey? So interesting that there's always, like you said, there's always another piece to look at when you're talking about sustainability.
Well, again, like, if you go onto the EPA website or any of the government websites, like that was always kind of my starting point as well, in terms of how they actually send out the reports every year for Ireland's overall emissions profile. So they have it broken down into residential, commercial emissions, transport emissions, agricultural emissions, transport, agriculture, energy, commercial, and services. What's the fifth one as well? So it's just finding out where you fit in that pie chart. And then it even is the small things. LED lights are great at conserving energy, but again, that also helps you save money, which I'm sure everyone wants to do now at the moment as well.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, isn't it? I think when you hit people's pockets and you make them realize being sustainable is more efficient, and it's cheaper as well. So it's a financial decision as well as an ethical and moral decision. You've set up this business in 2018. You're selling online. you know, you're obviously working on these amazing projects that you're involved in. Where do you see the future of the business going in the next, say, year or 2 years?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's an emotional roller coaster. I'm not going to lie now. One week you think you're doing all right, and the next you're like, Jesus Christ. So I only left my job at PwC in July, so I'm kind of a few months into running it full time.
Wow, congratulations.
Bleeding the savings dry. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I just didn't get to fix up and have looking and working as well as I would have liked when you're kind of balancing a few bits. So the next few weeks we're upgrading and fixing up a lot of the issues and mistakes on the website. So if anyone does see it, I'm sorry. We want to streamline the website, and then I really want to hammer home the education and partnerships initiative. So there's a lot of work going into that the past few weeks, because again, I just like to think about it that if it, like, you always see them books years ago, like Accountants for Dummies, like that's nearly how we want to be. Like if I can do it, anybody can kind of look into it or learn into it. But hammer the educational piece home, get the partnerships up and running fully and properly in terms of just being able to have all the slide decks ready and all the newsletters ready, so people can actually say, right, it's, and you mentioned the word tangible and intangible earlier on, like that's essentially it, that you get a tangible box ticked, but there's all these other intangibles that you now are aware of and know of across the other side of the world. So I'm hoping that will always go back to positive psychology, and that you by you knowing the benefits of reusables, it's going to foster good habits, new behaviors, and make it more likely that you're going to be using your reusable on a daily basis rather than just buying a reusable and leaving it in the cupboard.
Yeah, of course.
For a lot of the next few weeks, it'll be focusing on getting the admin bits cleaned up and ticked off, and then hopefully B Corp certified. That's the next big thing. And then there's always a dangerous point of view. So I done my accounting exams to being a chartered accountant. So you have that certification there as well. There's the personal aspect of this as well, where you want to get all the business operations running fully, and then all the partnerships fully aware of the benefits that they're achieving as well. But then there's 2 courses. One I've signed up for carbon literacy. So that's just actually verify that I know what I'm talking about, and I can be a hell of a lot more confident in what I'm talking about as well. And that, I suppose, you don't want to be sharing misinformation or bad information. Everyone can be very biased with this sort of stuff. And even like a lot of the reports I've seen a few weeks ago, McKinsey will say one stat, and then you have another website saying another stat. So it is a complex area data-wise. I really want to make sure that you know what you're talking about, and you have a couple of personal certifications behind you to be a bit more legitimate, I guess, rather than just kind of reading and learning through experience.
Yeah, for sure. And having kind of those credentials behind you that you are able to stand by what you're saying. You mentioned the website there. Actually, I thought the website was brilliant. It's obviously a Shopify website, and I actually think the layout is great, because I see a lot of websites every day, and I'm very into, obviously being marketing, I'm very into website layouts. Why did you decide to go with Shopify as opposed to another web hosting?
I initially built the website in Wix, and I hadn't a clue what I was doing, and it didn't look too bad in the end. And I suppose Wix wasn't too bad because there was a lot of drag and drop. So I was just sitting there in my lunch breaks playing with dragging and dropping. But as I got good feedback, we got chatting to people online, and there's a girl, Emma from Blank Slate, and then got chatting with her and got working with her. So a lot of website is thanks to her and her incredible eye for detail and whatnot as well. So we chose Shopify because it seemed to be simple to actually use, navigate, put together. There's a lot of good automations on it as well, which I'm still not really using to this point at all as well. There's always a good plans and never really get implemented.
There's so many things you could be doing, isn't that? It's the way in business.
Extremely flexible, and it was quite budget friendly as well. Like you can start off at a minimal price and then build your way up if you wanted to. I'm still on one of the more efficiently priced models as well. And yeah, it just seemed very user friendly. So I think that was it.
And have you any plans to go into retail or sell on Amazon, or are you more focused kind of on the corporate side of things or on direct to consumer?
Yeah, so that was one of the mistakes I initially made. Well, not mistakes. I suppose you can always
learnings.
Yeah. So because I started off selling reusables for €15, pretty much a cost price, just to get them out there to friends and family. There was no margin for myself, never alone for a retailer or a wholesaler, and there are things I didn't think about or consider. So only the past few months, you've kind of started to do some pricing and whatnot of the other larger brands again, which I don't really like doing. But I hope to maybe get into a few retailers at the end of the year. But it's definitely tricky because everything that's going on at the moment. I don't know how people will be in terms of Christmas and the New Year and whatnot as well. But
Yeah, for sure.
love to get into a few more shops. Yeah, like we have Pax Whole Foods down in Mayo, and they've always been tremendous support since day one. I think they kind of just like the way you were going about things, and they've a great little shop down in Mayo. But yeah, have very little retail exposure now at the moment, so we'll see. But the corporate piece is definitely picking up, and I think that's fantastic because like corporates literally can say with the click of a finger. I know there's a lot of hierarchy and a lot of approvals and from say my days in PwC, but one corporate can hit 200 people. That's 200 people choosing reusables. That's a hell of a lot of money saved. That's a hell of a lot of benefits in terms of oil, microplastics, and whatnot as well. So I'd love
have more of an impact there,
quicker and faster impact, yeah. And then there's branding benefits as well and stuff like that too. And it's a hell of a lot more cost efficient and friendly when you can write it off at the end of the year. But
yeah, of course.
There's a lot of work to go into where we want to go over the next year. I feel still very clueless and still somewhat surprised that we're going 2.5 years.
Well, you're obviously doing something right because there's a lot of businesses that don't last beyond the 2 years. The 2 years seems to be this kind of marker for a lot of businesses, and if you survive beyond 2 years, you're obviously doing something's going right. I was going to say something else to you there. In relation to your social media, I was looking at your social media there, and obviously you're on TikTok and you're on Instagram and you have a great presence on there. How do you find that? Because I'm always telling businesses to get on TikTok. It's like the next, well, it's not even the next thing. It's already here. It's already huge. What made you decide to kind of create content on TikTok and on Instagram?
So Instagram was the first place I went to because, again, like you were lucky to have a lot of friends and family and like growing up playing a lot of sports, like you had a bit of a network there anyway through college and all that. And then it was so like that's probably the only thing that's got me this far is the network from friends and sports clubs and that from home and that. And it was always nice, like even during the FLA there, like everyone's obviously throwing points into them where people are like, oh, I'm thinking differently now because of Instagram. So like, it's cost friendly and it's just easy to get your message across as well. So again, like the approach I took was I'm not an expert, but this is what I'm looking at. And I think people just like that approach because it was a bit more realistic and straightforward. And I don't know, I suppose you're just trying to do your best, really. And people just kind of took to maybe the natural approach I wanted. I did I kind of put the idea of putting your face to an Instagram profile was just keeping it realistic and actionable. And I suppose accountability to putting your face to something as well. So if you're confident enough to put your face to it, which I'm not saying I am, but like the idea was you're accountable and it's keeping it a bit more realistic, I guess. Instagram can be a pain. There's a lot of work that goes into getting one post ready on Canva and all that sort of stuff as well. But it's fantastic in terms of community networking, cheap, affordable, and you do enjoy it. But I still don't like talking in front of the camera too much now. I took a breath here in about half an hour maybe.
I think a lot of people would say the same thing, but I think if you have a face to your brand, it does help people relate to your business more, doesn't it? And help people understand your story and what you're all about. If somebody listening today wants to kind of follow you on social media, or better still, if they want to buy Narcissips reusable cup, where can they find it?
Yes, the website is www.narcissips.com. So I'm going to say it myself. And then we have our socials. Everything's just at Narcissips, NARCISSIPS. And then try and get I actually deleted TikTok 2 years ago and then re-downloaded it. It scares me a little bit. And then just our email address is cathal@narcissips.com if anyone wanted to just reach out or inquire about partnerships or anything like that as well.
Cool. It's great when you can get the handle at and just your business name across all social media. Makes it so much easier, doesn't it? That's brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Cathal, and for telling us about your business journey and your sustainability journey as well.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Today's episode of SCANtalk by GS1 Ireland was presented and produced by me, Fionnuala Malone. You can subscribe to SCANtalk on Apple, Google, Acast, or on our website, gs1ie.org/podcast. Talk to you next time.